Okay, today we are going to be looking at South American economy and their urban environments in South America. Okay, so the economy of South America, all of their countries have at least some market economies. Some people that are enjoying a high standard of living. Remember, standard of living, remember what that means? We talked about that. Remember, standard of living means the number of material items that you are able to purchase. That's usually how we define it. So it's kind of your general wealth, what you can own, but it goes with kind of the maybe the education you have at the literacy rate. We've looked at those for some other areas already. So that's what we mean by standard of living. Okay. One thing about South America is that their middle class is growing. And remember, we've talked about middle class before. This is a really big deal. It's very important that the middle class is growing. You want to have a growing and a large middle class because that usually indicates for an area that you have more stability. When you have a lot of people that have at least a kind of middle amount of standard of living, middle class, you don't just have all people that are poor or all people that are rich, or like a bunch of people that are poor and a few people that are rich. You want to have a growing big middle class. That's important. Okay, so that's a really good thing. Okay, even though they have a lot of people that are growing middle class, they have a lot of countries that are still considered either developing or middle income countries. You might hear both depending on who you're listening to. Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Uruguay have the strongest economies. In South America, agriculture is also very important. We always look at agriculture a little bit. Their agriculture in South America can range from subsistence farming to huge commercial farms and ranches. Remember, ranches is kind of where you're having mostly animals that you're taking care of for farming. Okay, so remember subsistence farming, what the difference between subsistence farming and commercial farming is. Subsistence farming, remember, is where you're farming pretty much just for yourself and your family. Okay, so there are large estates from the colonial period that were broken up into small farms, and if you have a farm like that, then it's called minifundia. Okay, that's one of our vocab terms. The problem with those is that a lot of them have very poor land, and they were broken up in a lot of cases that were too small to really be able to make a profit. So yes, they were broken up from very large states from the colonial period, but in a lot of cases they were broken up to be just a little bit too small for any family to really be able to make a profit. So that's a problem they have. Okay. Equality in land ownership is the basis of a lot of the poverty and unrest in South America. Okay, so a little bit more about agriculture. In Brazil and Colombia, the main thing that they grow is coffee. So a lot of the coffee that we drink, even in America, a lot of it comes from Brazil or Colombia. Colombia also sells a lot of cut flowers. So if you've ever gotten flowers for someone or received flowers, you may or may not have gotten flowers from Colombia. Chile sells a lot of fruits and vegetables. So they make a lot of fruits and vegetables. Argentina sells a lot of beef and a lot of wheat. That's what they do. South American countries also, there's a lot of other things they do. Wide range of agricultural products from cacao beans to potatoes to sunflower seeds. So down here I have a picture of the inside of a cacao plant. Cacao is where chocolate comes from. So if you, like me, are a fan of chocolate, then this is a good thing, right? Okay. So the Amazon basin. You've probably heard about the Amazon. This is not the Amazon that people buy things from necessarily. This is the rainforest that hopefully you've heard of before. Okay. And so from Amazon area, the basin, remember basin is not what you wash things in this case. Basin means all of the area where the water comes to create the Amazon River, which, remember, the Amazon River from your physical map, that's kind of near and in the middle of your Amazon rainforest. Okay, so in that area, there's a fair amount of agriculture and mining because there's some gold and other valuable materials there. It's also very well known for rubber. There's a lot of rubber trees that are in the Amazon. And so you can see over here this picture where they show how you collect rubber from a tree. So anything that you use that's rubber, tires, anything like that, very well could come from rubber trees from this area. Now, this area is being exploited for hardwood trees, sometimes for ranching, and there is some oil in this area, so that too. The problem with this is deforestation. Okay, so we've talked about deforestation in several areas. You're going to hear about it more throughout this year. Deforestation is an issue where really we're just getting too many trees cut down. And so that threatens very unique plant and animal life, especially in this area. We've talked about the climates, and there's a lot of more tropical climates, and so a lot of different things can grow. And so there's a lot of very unique plants and animals that live there. And so that's a pretty big thing. It also very well threatens the ways of life for Amazonian Indians or our native peoples that live there. There's a number of tribes that live in the Amazon forest, and it's a very big problem, the deforestation. Although they have come up with some interesting solutions, where I think I saw an article somewhat recently that they've taught some tribes of the Amazonian native peoples how to fly drones, and some of them are helping their government keep track of deforestation, and for people that aren't allowed to cut down trees, kind of catch them when they're doing that, because they know the forest really well. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, industry. Most factories produce food items, consumer goods, or building materials. Work is usually done by hand in South America. It's not usually done by machines like it is in the US. Some do produce cars, trucks, and airplanes. Okay, trading. The Mercosur is the trading bloc in the southern part of South America. So we're already in South America, but in the southern part, they have a special trading part, kind of like the USMCA for North America. That's kind of like what they have here. So it's meant to expand trade, to improve transportation, and reduce tariffs among member countries. So we have some maps. All the people in blue are part of this special trading bloc, right? And so you can see that they trade things, and they also can export things to other countries, right? So full members include Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. But then there are some people who are kind of partial members. Okay. Urban environments. Leading cities are huge compared to other cities. So a lot of times they have one very, very big city, and then they have a couple smaller cities. But most people are very tied into one really big city in the country. Okay. Nearly 1/3 of the people that live in the country of Peru live in the city of Lima. So 1/3 of all of their people live in one city. Okay, it's very big. And the cities continue to grow as people come to look for jobs. So a lot of times people move to the city because they're looking for a job. So we've talked about push and pull factors a lot. One of the push factors is there's a lot of rural poverty, and very limited good land. We talked about that it's very hard sometimes to have, there's a lot of land inequality. So one of the push factors that pushes them out of living in rural areas is rural poverty and the fact that there's not a lot of good land. Pull factors that pulls them into the city, right, is that they're going for better jobs and just a more exciting life. Some people just like the city life. So sometimes that pulls them into doing urban environments. Okay, in urban environments, life can still be hard. Um, there are many people that aren't skilled enough for the jobs, so you have to have skills in order to get jobs, and sometimes they don't have the same skills that there are jobs for, and so that can still be a really big problem in order to get a job. Poor people often live in slums around the cities, so there's not always very good housing options, and sometimes these slums are very unsafe. And so each country often has its own name for different slums. That's pretty common. In Brazil, they're called favelas. So that's one of our vocab words. And in Brazil, they're home to around 25% of Rio de Janeiro's people. So a fourth of the people that live in that city live in the slums of that city. Okay? So there's also a problem if there's a lot of crime and there's a lot of lack of basic services. So remember, especially when we talked about Mexico, we talked about a lot of infrastructure things. We talked about basic services. We can talk about water. We can talk about sewer. We can talk about, um, you know, trash collecting or healthcare or being able to find food in like grocery stores. Sometimes those kinds of things can be very difficult to find. Okay. So uh, that's kind of where we're going to stop for today, looking at the South American economies a little bit and looking at the urban environments in South America.